Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching 15th part of What If Naruto Mastered Ancient Shinobi Way. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto sat in his office, going over some papers. It wasn't much, considering Hinata did a far better job. This made him bitter because he had to rely on shadow clones to complete the daily torture session known as paperwork. But he accepted grudgingly, hoping that he could persuade her to do it again. Tsubaki, who was standing to his left as usual, noticed his expression change from sour to contemplative to conspiratorial. It had always amazed her how he could be such an expressive child one moment and then transform into a stone-faced shinobi capable of terrifying any foe the next. However, before she could finish her thought, shouts began to emerge from outside the door, becoming louder as they got closer to the office. She could sense the approaching person's rage. She quickly reached for her sword and was about to walk into position when Naruto motioned for her to stop and stay where she was. She didn't understand everything, but she didn't rebel. Perhaps he was expecting it. The door burst open before she could think of a plan of action in case something went wrong. When the door was rudely and suddenly slammed open, Naruto didn't even look up from his paperwork to grab the few sheets that flew. He didn't even notice the young man his own age staring at him with a dark and brooding expression. "I've been waiting for you," he said calmly, barely concealing his impatience, "and you're going to answer all of my questions." Naruto leaned back and smiled as he placed his pen down after signing the last sheet. "It's good to see you again, Sasuke," Naruto said. "We've been expecting you." Of course, Sasuke noticed when he said, "we," but he didn't pay attention because he saw the kunoichi standing rigidly behind Naruto's chair, suspiciously eyeing him. He paused for a moment when a sudden movement behind him caused him to spin around and face his own older brother. "Hello, Sasuke," Itachi said in an awkward tone. "I see you were doing well since our last departure." Sasuke glared at his older brother, but Itachi noticed that it lacked the same ferocious hatred that he had instilled in his own younger brother, or had been greatly reduced. "Sit down, you two," Naruto said, "and Tsubaki, please make sure we're not disturbed." They complied, though Sasuke waited until Itachi sat before sitting and watching him. Naruto was about to begin the conversation when Sasuke cut him off. "Is it true," he inquired, "that Konoha betrayed our clan and ordered you to slaughter them all in cold blood?" Itachi waited a few moments, not looking at Sasuke, before responding. "No," Itachi stated flatly. "So, why did you?" "It was the clan that betrayed Konoha," Itachi explained. "They planned a coup that would have eventually destroyed the peace of the village. I couldn't let it happen, so I did what was necessary." Sasuke froze, unable to believe what his ears were hearing. "His clan, traitors. Impossible. Those bastards," he said lowly, barely above a whisper, "they destroyed my clan and turned you into a criminal." Sasuke's eyes appeared to be glazed over as he spoke, as if taken over by sadness, anger, and then hatred. "I will not forgive them. The Uchiha cannot forgive those elders who destroyed everything," he said loudly. "Ni-san, I want to stay with you." That didn't surprise Itachi because he had expected it. He did, however, figure out why Sasuke asked for such a thing, which caused him to frown. But he had to ask, if only to confirm what he already knew. "Why, Sasuke?" he asked. "Would you leave Konoha twice, after everything Naruto-sama has done to clear your name and give you a fresh start?" "What nonsense are you talking about, Naruto-sama? A new start?" he snarled. "There is no new start. I will never forgive that village for what they have done. Won't you help me get revenge on them?" Sasuke's face darkened as he realized his brother was not responding. "Fine. If you don't help me, I'll avenge our clan myself," he said as he stood up, "and I'll get revenge for you, Aniki, and then all." "Enough." That one word caused him to abruptly stop speaking and rise from his seat. He didn't recognize it at first, so when he saw Naruto standing from his own seat and staring at him, he was taken aback. He was about to respond to the command, but that thought was cut short by what happened next. Naruto reclaimed his seat. "Sit down, Uchiha Sasuke. I did not give you permission to leave or to be a fool," he said calmly. Sasuke had no choice but to obey despite the direct command and insult that accompanied it. The way he spoke inspired absolute obedience, so much so that even a stubborn person like Sasuke felt compelled to obey, or rather, his body could not disobey while his mind was thrown into disarray. If Sasuke had been a weaker person, he might have even said, "Yes, sir." What is this pressure? It's as if my body can't disobey, Sasuke wondered as he took his seat. Haven't you learned anything? Haven't you realized the real truth yet? Sasuke glared at the insult, unable to respond. You say the Uchiha should be avenged, and I would agree if they did not deserve their end. They committed the worst crime possible for ninja. They betrayed their home, and worse of all, it was a home they helped create. It was us who were betrayed, Sasuke countered. We were scorned and treated like second-class citizens after all we had done, for a reason that was not our own. We should have been respected, instead we were treated like a Jinchuriki? Naruto finished Sasuke's statement, causing him to widen his eyes at the resemblance, and yet your clan's name is still touted as one of the greatest clans of ninja, both praised and feared. Any other clan would have lost not only their lives, but their name as well. Your brother made sure that didn't happen, and most importantly, he made sure to leave you a great legacy and Naruto-sama, you. Itachi said softly, realizing Naruto knew far more than he let on. If you continue down this path, Sasuke, you will become a disgrace. A disgrace to your village, your clan, and a disgrace to the brother who sacrificed everything for you. Am I supposed to just forgive them then? Sasuke wondered. What they did to Nii-san was unforgivable. There is nothing left to forgive, Naruto said. Your clan turned on the village, and they were killed by one of their own, and all anyone knows is that they were betrayed by the best Uchiha genius in generations, and history will see it as a tragedy against Konoha's most noble and powerful clan, and you will be the ray of hope that will bring the Uchiha clan back from the ashes. After Naruto finished speaking, there was silence. It was a difficult pill for Sasuke to swallow, and he compared it to opening your eyes to see the light after closing them while hiding in the darkness. It was revealing, but it hurt, and he wanted to close them again to alleviate the pain of the truth. But, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on one's point of view, Sasuke was in the company of the only two people who would not allow him that luxury, at least not any longer in Itachi's case. Then what am I to do? He wondered. How can I live in the same place knowing the truth and not do anything about it? It's really simple, Naruto said, seeing Sasuke's stunned expression. Just live like I did. Fight for respect, work for strength, and earn your power. Be more than the Uchiha ever was before, and even though what was done will never be known, that blight still exists, so it's up to you to rise above it. Sasuke appeared to have reservations, but Naruto's next words and a strong hand on his shoulders quickly dispelled them. You are my friend Sasuke, and that means more to me than you know, he said with a smile, and as my friend and rival, only you could have a chance of doing it, and besides, you are a hero who killed Konoha's two most notorious Nukenin. Who else can I entrust my dream of becoming Hokage to? That certainly shocked and enraged Sasuke. Even though it was a frivolous excuse, it could easily be used to get him back into the village. After all, while some might question it, who could see the ruse for what it was? You mean? He asked, earning a nod from Naruto. Then Sasuke smirked. Hey, like you'd become Hokage anyway. It doesn't matter, bastard. I am the Kanshisha of this village. Now get out of my office, Naruto replied. Sasuke simply smirked and proceeded to the door. But as he approached it, he paused and looked back, realizing Itachi was not with him. "Oni-san?" he inquired. "I will be with you shortly," he promised, flashing Sasuke his first smile in years. "There is much I still need to tell you." Sasuke then left, and Itachi returned to Naruto. "You do have a certain power," Itachi said, "the kind that makes people want to believe in you. But for saving my brother from a dark path, I will be your loyal servant for the rest of my life." Naruto flushed and scratched the back of his neck. "None of that, Itachi. I would have done the same for any of my friends, and Sasuke was like a brother to me. If things had turned out differently, he and I would have been standing in each other's shoes," Naruto said, "but that is not the only reason I called you here." "Do you have a task for me?" "Yes. I believe you've heard about the Konoha attack by now?" Itachi nodded. "Only what you've alluded to the dragons in the village right now." "Not even Hinata-chan knows the full extent," Naruto began, "but I will reveal everything to you right now. Konoha was attacked by pain. They were looking for me." "That makes sense," Itachi said. "When I left, I made Kisame forget about finding you in this country, so Konoha was the only lead they had on you. How come he didn't leave after finding out you were not there?" "Because the people of Konoha kept my secret, he didn't find out until it was too late," Naruto smiled, "but he almost destroyed the village if I hadn't arrived at that time. That was a huge jutsu. I even performed an S-rank futon jutsu and it still didn't completely neutralize it." They remained silent as they processed the information. "We fought for a while and I eventually won, and let me tell you, those 6 paths were no laughing matter. Had he fought me in person, it would have been a completely different battle." "So, what happened to his eyes and his body?" Itachi wondered. The one pulling the strings would no doubt seek out his eyes for his own purposes. "I didn't kill him," Naruto stated calmly, "but I did convince him to believe in what Jiraiya-sensei taught us." Itachi was stunned once more. This 16-year-old boy not only defeated a powerful S-rank ninja and won, but he also persuaded him to join him. But the surprises didn't stop there. "We made a pact and decided to be allies, which the Leaf would not like, but it is better to have friends than enemies, and if you only have enemies, keep them close rather than at arm's length," Naruto said, sounding far wiser than his age. "For this, Itachi, you shall be my proxy in negotiations." "I see," Itachi said thoughtfully. "When do I leave?" "You will leave today because it will take you 2 days to get there," he said. "This is very important, not only to this village, but also to the future of the ninja world." "I understand. I will succeed." Itachi then walked away. "Forgive my impertinence, Uzumaki-sama," Tsubaki said as he walked away, "but he was once a member of Akatsuki with pain. Do you think it's wise to let them meet unsupervised?" "Wise, no," Naruto admitted, "but sometimes in order to gain trust, we must give it. Also, Itachi is one of us now, and you must remember he is part of the Jiryu along with you and the others. You all are part of a family, and you must learn to trust each other because you all are a symbol of Konshishi's power and thus act as my body. I cannot have my left and right hands suspicious of each other. Please accept my apologies for questioning you, Uzumaki-sama." Naruto had grown accustomed to her submissive behavior toward him, despite the fact that she was allowed to question his decision due to her position as a member of the village's most elite group. "Oh well," Naruto sighed mentally, "some things just never change, and I guess I should get used to it." Naruto rose to his feet. "Tsubaki, remember you are not your average ninja and have earned the right to ask questions," he said. "Anyway, let's go surprise Hinata-chan. I haven't seen her yet." Hinata was usually on top of her work. In fact, she was one of the few people who always had her work done and finished by midday. This time, however, things were a little different. Hyuga Hinata, one of Arashi's most powerful ninjas, was currently behind on her paperwork. If looks could kill, the glare she cast on the stacks of paper would have caused them to spontaneously catch fire. She had no such luck, so sighing heavily, she walked to the door. "Can you make sure no one bothers me?" she asked one of her guards stationed outside her door. "I am very busy, so I cannot see anyone." "As you command," said the masked ninja. Hinata returned to her desk, forming an all-too-familiar hand seal with a devious grin on her face. "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he says. 3 copies emerged from the smoke. "Alright, let's get this over with," the original said before they all dove into the paperwork. "You know," one of the clones began, "what do you think Naruto-kun would do if he caught you doing what you told him not to do?" It was a harmless question, but as soon as the words left its mouth, the temperature in the room dropped, causing all the clones to stop what they were doing and stare fearfully at the lavender-eyed girl. He'll never find out. Ever. Of course, it was just a passing thought. After that, they didn't say anything else as they rushed to finish the paperwork before Naruto decided to pay them a visit, because they hadn't seen each other since he returned, and it was only a matter of time. Unfortunately, she also knew that if he decided to surprise her, the guard outside would make no difference. So it came as no surprise when she heard a slow rhythmical tapping of feet directly behind her. She instantly froze when she heard this. Although she was distracted at the time, sneaking up on her like that was ridiculous, and there were only a handful of people in the village capable of doing so, and the fact that the guards were not alerted narrowed it down even further. Hinata and her 3 clones turned slowly, only to turn back when their suspicions were confirmed. Naruto, who appeared to be upset, stood behind her, arms folded. She dismissed her clones in an instant. Naruto-kun, she cursed herself for stuttering. "You got some explaining to do, Hinata," Naruto said, his eyes narrowed in a smirk on his face. And she did explain. Hinata had spent the better part of 2 hours attempting to justify her actions. Of course, if she could have stopped stuttering and made a coherent sentence, it would have taken less time. Unfortunately, Naruto was having far too much fun to let her off that easily, so he patiently waited to hear what she had to say with his best angry face. He simply enjoyed making her nervous to the point of reverting to her old shy ways. He had to use force to stop her in the end. She made no complaint. Who could complain when you were forced to kiss your lips shut? Hinata simply said, "Okay," at the end of it all. Poor girl had no chance, and no one would ever tell Uzumaki Naruto not to use shadow clones to finish his work after that. As a result, a beaming Naruto and Hinata stood hand in hand at the village's entrance, bidding their Konoha visitors farewell and wishing them a safe journey back to the Leaf. "Thank you for your hospitality, Naruto-sama," Naruto said softly, "and may we maintain good relations in the future." "Yes, and I want you to deliver a message to Hokage Dono," Naruto said formally, which still surprised those who knew him as a child. "Like how our ancestors, Otogakure, were brothers and shared a strong bond, let us reform that bond, but unlike Otogakure, the storm will not fall." The bond between Uzumaki and Senju is now renewed. Kakashi had no idea what that meant, but it didn't matter because it wasn't meant for him. "I will relay this message," he said as he turned and began walking through the genjutsu barrier on the paved path. The Konoha contingent walked for a few minutes before Kakashi raised his hand and stopped everyone. "We know you're there," he said, "so you might as well show up." A person emerged from the shadows of the trees. The individual was dressed in a dark traveling cloak with a hood over his face and a mask similar to Kakashi's over his mouth, further masking his identity. 2 kanji written vertically on the back of the traveling cloak read, "Ten Dragon." "Who are you?" Kakashi inquired, "and did the Kanshisha leave us a message?" "No, I was on my way to complete a mission," the figure said, reaching up to remove his hood, "so I decided to accompany you until our paths diverged." The removal of the hood revealed to all those who knew who this person was. I see. Well, we're still in your territory, and it will be an honor to have one of Arashi's elite accompany us, even if only for a portion of the journey. Day 2. Tsunade looked out from her temporary office at Konoha, which was nothing more than a circular patch of barren, compressed earth surrounded by some rubble and then the remaining buildings that Pain's jutsu didn't touch, and she couldn't help but wonder how lucky Konoha was. While she didn't know what Naruto had done, she was certain he had stopped the pain. After all, the swath of village that was destroyed does not appear to be deserving of the kind of agony that the red-headed former Akatsuki was preaching. Tsunade basked in the light of a new day as the sun rose over the Hokage monument. Her moment of peace was cut short when one of her Anbu appeared in front of her desk. "Yes, what is it?" she inquired. "A team of Kumo ninja has arrived with a message from the Raikage." "What does that blowhard want, Raikage?" she pondered. "Send them in." With that, the ninja vanished in a blur of speed. A few moments later, the door opened, and 2 females and 1 male entered. The male and one of the females had darker skin tones, and the boy and girl both had white hair and red hair. The other woman had a lighter skin tone, short blonde hair, a large bust, and sharp piercing eyes. Tsunade knew she was the leader of this team from the moment she saw the 3 of them, even if the blonde wasn't in front of her. The 3 formed a straight line in front of the Hokage. Tsunade offered, "Please have a seat." "Thank you, Hokage-sama, but this is fine," the blonde said politely. It was a simple and subtle act of defiance to demonstrate that, while she respected the Hokage's power and position, their allegiance was not with her. It also demonstrated that she was no slouch in verbal battles. "Suit yourselves," Tsunade said as she leaned back in her chair. "Now, what message was so important that the Raikage had to send you 3, Karui, Samui, and Omoi, to personally deliver it?" They were not surprised that the Hokage recognized all 3 of them. They'd be even more surprised if she hadn't. So, without further ado, Samui spoke. "The Raikage has called for a meeting of the 5 Kage." Tsunade raised an eyebrow at that. The Raikage and Tsuchikage were the last 2 people she expected to call such a meeting. So, what could possibly have prompted such a gathering? Tsunade's lips curled into a smile. "I certainly didn't expect this, and especially not from of all people," Tsunade began. "Tell me, what is the reason for this?" Tsunade deliberated on this for a while. "Very well, I'll come," Tsunade said as a pair of Anbu entered the office, one holding the door open. "They'll escort you to the gates." The 3 bowed respectfully and exited. A meeting of the 5 Kages? Tsunade wondered. Nothing good ever happens when Kages from different nations meet. The Ninja Academy of Arashigakure. Things did begin to change, particularly for a group of children standing outside the Arashigakure Ninja Academy. They were all aware of what day it was and why they had gathered. Today was Arashi's first day of Genin exams. Some were nervous, some were anxious, and some simply waited calmly while storing their excitement. They didn't understand why the exams were being taken by everyone, not just the special advanced class and the final year class. Juube, in particular, kept wondering about it because he couldn't stop staring at the students he knew were from the Year 1, Year 2, and Year 3 classes. "Hey, Kuro," he said quietly to one of his 2 best friends. Kuren did not respond verbally, but nodded to acknowledge him. "What the hell is going on?" he wondered. "I thought this exam was only for the advanced class and 4th years." While Kuren was intrigued by this, he was not one to question what his superiors did, so all he did was shrug. Jubei sighed and turned to face his other friend. "Kimi, do you know why so many first-year students are taking the exams?" Kimiko approached him with a look that almost begged the question, "Are you stupid?" In retrospect, he should have asked her first because she was the brightest of the three. That, however, was something he would never admit. The thing was, she didn't know either. It was just that she was still a child trying to maintain the image of knowing it all to the strongest guy in class, because despite being the strongest physically, he was also an idiot with a short temper. It would be inappropriate to be in the same boat. A puff of smoke appeared in front of them before she could say anything. "I see you're all excited," a grizzled middle-aged warrior said as the smoke cleared. "Good, because you'll be tested for the next 2 days, because the Genin exams start now." In his late 40s, the man appeared to be a terrifying figure. His hair was starting to gray, but that didn't take away from the sharp, cold look in his eyes. The eyes of an old soldier who was always looking ahead to the next battlefield. His name was Hayam, and he was the first-year teacher. However, before we begin, there are a few things you should be aware of. "Excuse me, Hayam-san," a gentle voice at his side said, "would you please allow me to explain the rules to the children?" Many of the Genin hopefuls didn't like being called children after enduring a year of hell, especially the Year 1 and Year 2 students. It was visible on their faces and in the muffled muttering that went around the assembled students. "Quiet. You will listen and pay full attention to everything Hinata-sama has to say," Hayam said quietly, "commit it all to memory because what she is about to say will decide your fate at the end of tomorrow." Hayam took a step back, allowing Hinata to take the lead. She smiled at everyone who was staring at her. They were so intent on her that she felt unnerved for a split second, but looking at them, she couldn't help but smile at their determination. "Good morning everyone. As you may or may not know, my name is Hinata, and I will be explaining to you how you will be tested," she began. "First, you would have noticed that you were all from different year groups." They responded with a nod. "This is because you are the first batch of students to enter the academy, and because many of you were either part of a wandering clan or another village, you would have already had prior training," she continued. "However, Arashigakure is not like any other village. Our standards are far higher than that of all the other villages, which is why those of the advanced class are now being tested rather than simply made genin." She paused after saying this to look at the students' expressions. They were truly surprised, and some were outraged, to discover that they had been purposefully held back. Hinata continued before anyone could say anything to the gentle-looking woman in front of them. "General knowledge, stealth and cunning, weapons, taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu," Hinata explained, "are the 6 main skills of the ninja as they form the basis for all other more advanced skills such as sealing techniques, barrier techniques, medical techniques, and assassination techniques. To be a Junin of this village, you must show acceptable competence in at least 4 of these." That last sentence elicited a collective sigh. It was a shame she had to burden them with what she had to say next. However, stealth and cunning are compulsory. This seemed to dampen some of their spirits. Stealth and cunning is the most powerful tool a ninja possesses, second only to knowledge, but knowledge can get you killed trying to collect without the necessary amount of stealth and cunning. "Why don't we get this thing on already?" yelled a boy. "I'm burning and ready to go." Hinata, who was giggling in her sleeve at the boy, stopped Hayam from reprimanding him. "You must be Jubei-kun. Naruto-kun mentioned you," Jubei said with an arrogant grin. "Then I will allow Hayam-san to begin the exams." "Thank you, Hinata-sama," Hayam said. "Now everyone, go to the indoor training room, because today we will only be testing you on 3 skills, the first of which shall be knowledge." Jubei grumbled, staring at the sheets of paper in front of him and the pencil and eraser next to it. "Why the hell did it have to be a written test? I suck at these." He looked around the room and noticed that almost everyone was busy shading and writing, especially Kimiko, who seemed to be having the time of her life, and Guren, who did the test as if it were beneath him. They were given 3 hours to complete 100 multiple choice and short answer questions. Because the questions were not arranged in any particular order of difficulty, a student could arrive at a question that he or she thought was the most difficult. This would test whether the student had the foresight to leave it and return when they were finished rather than wasting time on it. Unfortunately for Jubei, question 11 proved to be his Achilles heel, as he was stuck on it for nearly 30 minutes. He had decided to peek at someone else's paper at one point, but then he happened to glance at the one thing he considered to be the ultimate cheat deterrent, an activated Byakugan. The other academy teachers serving as proctors did not even show up. At the very least, that little reality check helped him figure out question 10 before he got into this mess. He finally got tired of trying to figure out question 11 and decided to move on. Unfortunately, he did not make it very far. Time. Hayam said, "Put down your pencils, put your scripts on the top right-hand corner of your desks, and exit at the back. You have half an hour before you return to continue the examination." "Damn it," Jubei grumbled, "but I'll get them with the next one." The following test was taijutsu. To say Jubei was ecstatic would be an understatement. He expected to simply walk through his opponents and demonstrate his superiority. However, this was not to be. He was placed in a 20 by 20 foot box wearing only his pants. No shoes, shirts, jewelry, or other clothing or garments of any kind. His opponent, who stood across from him, was dressed similarly. Jubei despised this, not the lack of clothing. He was a man in good shape for his age. What he despised was the skinny jerk standing across from him, who didn't bother to act serious. Across from him stood the only person he had yet to defeat, Guren, his friend. He would never admit it openly, as they appeared to be rivals on the surface. A man in simple clothing resembling a GI walked between the two boys, who remained on their respective sides. "The next match is Jubei versus Guren," he said, "and this match will end when we see fit, and you must fight only within the confines of the ring. Begin." He jumped out of the way as he said this, and as the word left his mouth, both boys moved towards each other. Jubei charged at Guren, while Guren approached him more slowly. He didn't run, but rather walked with purpose. He wasn't underestimating Jubei. In fact, quite the opposite. Jubei was the only student in the entire academy who had a chance to beat him. The only reason Jubei hadn't beaten him yet was because his fighting style was more of a flowing counterattack kind of style, which was the worst possible matchup for Jubei, who fought in a very straightforward manner. To make matters worse for Jubei, because Guren was a Reizoku clan member, he was taught from a young age how to fight and dismantle opponents 3 times his size, so he knew exactly where to hit to cause the most damage. Jubei, on the other hand, was not sloppy in his taijutsu, and he was capable of not only guarding and blocking well, but also delivering a powerful punch. In other words, the winner would be the person who delivered the first clean hit. Kimiko sat on the sidelines, watching her two friends fight, or rather Jubei tried to pummel Guren into dust while Guren evaded and countered only to be blocked by Jubei. While the other examinees stared in awe, it was all she could do not to flinch whenever a foot or fist came dangerously close to colliding. "These two are incredible," a voice by her side said. "You should be proud of your two friends." She was taken aback by the sudden appearance of the voice, but she was even more taken aback when she realized who it was. Uzumaki Naruto sat on the ground behind Kimiko, wearing a hooded cloak over his usual clothes, watching Jubei and Guren fight. "Kon," she began, but Naruto quickly silenced her. "Not so loud," he said. "Despite the fact that you guys are no better than Genin, it's not easy for a guy like me to go unnoticed." "I'm sorry, Konshisha-sama," she said quietly. "It's fine," he replied, smiling. "You look worried for some reason. Aren't you proud of your two friends? They appear to be the two best genin here, but we will have to wait until tomorrow to find out for sure." "They are the best," she stated emphatically. "It's just that with most things, one is always clearly better than the other, like Kuro is better at academics and weapons while Jubei is better at ninjutsu and genjutsu. They are both equal in stealth, so that just leaves them with taijutsu. Ah, so that's it, they're rivals, Kimiko nodded, and since the things they're better at are due to their backgrounds and makeup, it just leaves taijutsu to decide who is better, and you're worried they'll hurt each other. Please excuse my boldness. Kanshisha-sama, I'm not concerned that they might hurt each other. I'm concerned that if this continues, they will hurt each other. Naruto had already deduced that much from the way the two boys were fighting, but he wanted to see if the Fumin girl he was speaking with was simply being an overly protective friend, or if she was analyzing the situation. What makes you think that? They don't look like they'd land a single blow on each other. Hey, they might probably get tired first, he asked, feigning ignorance. I hope that doesn't happen, she continued, seeing Naruto's raised eyebrows, because when that happens, one of them will get a hit in. If Jubei gets a blow in, it will severely damage Kuro because Jubei is extremely powerful, but if Kuro gets a blow in, the results will be the same because Kuro only strikes at weak points. She was correct. These were the same things that Naruto had noticed. In fact, he was the one who gave the cues on when to end the fights. Naruto had also realized that these two boys were dangerous. Naruto smiled as he imagined what would happen if Kuririn had his Naginata or if Jubei was allowed to use ninjutsu. Of course, he didn't forget about the third member of that team, the girl he was talking to, Fuma Kimiko, the girl said to be capable of mastering all of her clan's hidden techniques, and he could see why just by talking to her and listening to her analyze the fight. Very impressive indeed, Naruto said before turning to face the proctor and nodding. The fight was stopped when he gave his nod. Thank goodness the fight is over, she sighed as she looked at her two friends. They don't seem too happy that it ended before they could reach their own conclusion, but I'm sure they'd be happy that they impressed you, Kanshisha-sama. Naruto laughed. I was actually referring to you, he explained before making a single-handed seal. Wah! Kimiko exclaimed, turning back to face Naruto after he had said that. However, when she turned to face him, he was gone. Hey Kimiko, what did you think? The ref stopped the match before I could kick this guy in the shins, so tell us who won. Kimiko just kept looking around, as if looking for something. Is there a problem? Kuririn inquired. And who were you talking to right now? Jubei inquired. Kimiko simply smiled at her friends as she whispered to them. I believe the Kanshisha is somewhere around here. The students gathered at one end of the open field after their break. Hayam stood in front of them, looking over at the examinees. Your third and final test of the day, he said, pulling out a scroll and unsealing its contents in a puff of smoke. 2 tables were revealed as the smoke cleared. On one of the tables, there was a collection of weapons. Kunai, shuriken, senbon, swords, metal wire, exploding notes, and wooden staffs were among the weapons. On the other table, there was a more exotic collection of weapons, including war fans, kusarigama, clubs, axes, spears, naginatas, and many others. The students stared at the array of weapons, wondering how they would be tested. Hayam took a step forward between the 2 tables, raising his hands to them. His regular weapons were on his left, and his exotic weapons were on his right. The weapons on my left are the ones you'll see and interact with the most during your ninja career, whether they're in your hands, an ally's hands, or an enemy's hands. As a result, you will be expected to demonstrate proficiency in each of them, he explained. On my right, however, is an assortment of every melee, medium-ranged, and long-ranged weapon that exists on this continent. Many of these weapons you may have never seen before and will most likely never see again after today. Any of these weapons would count as extra points and could compensate for any inconsistencies in your use of the regular ones. The students all had determined expressions on their faces, with some even appearing smug. That being said, Please step up to the table on my left and select as many of each as you need, and those who can, select your weapon of choice from my right, he said after they did this. You will be tested in the indoor training room. It's been tweaked for this purpose. I'll send you in groups of 2, and once inside, you'll be guided through the course. Let's get started. The students assumed there would be someone inside to guide them through, but that was only a guess because no one came out with each pair of students who went in. As a result, rumors spread that the students had died or were in grave danger. He eventually chose Guren and Kimiko to participate. They were met by a Chunin and a long range directly in front of them as they entered. The range appeared to be divided directly down the center, with 3 targets at the end of each partition. Step up to the red line, the Chunin instructed Kimiko and Guren, and use your kunai, shuriken, and senbon to hit the target. You have 3 chances with each. Begin. They both nodded, took out their weapons, and began throwing. Because the Chunin didn't specify which target each weapon had to be used on, they chose at their own risk. Kimiko, while not perfect, was acceptable with her shuriken and, surprisingly, her senbon, while her kunai was only passable. Guren, on the other hand, was a master of all 3 weapons. The Chunin did nothing more than scribble something on his clipboard. Choose a door, he said, pointing to either side of the room, follow the path, and eliminate all enemies while being careful not to harm any non-enemies. The adversaries will be dressed in black. To eliminate the enemies, use any weapon at your disposal. Begin. They both entered their respective doors at this point. This test was designed to simulate actual battlefield conditions as closely as possible, with enemies appearing from anywhere and, because they were ninja, appearing in any position, including upside down on the ceiling. This test also had the advantage of putting the students under pressure, so it tested not only a student's accuracy, precision, awareness, and speed of weapon use, but also how well they held up under pressure. Additionally, the effectiveness of weapons was evaluated. After all, a ninja who used up all of his throwing weapons on one enemy at the start of a fight was doomed to be in a bad situation later, and a ninja who used exploding tags to kill an enemy holding a valuable or important person or object, while in some cases was the only option, demonstrated the ninja's limitations in others. The exam continued, and both students performed admirably. While Guren was a natural with almost any weapon, Kimiko could use them more effectively in battle and was quite surgical with those senbon. They both thought the test was going well, even going so far as to say it was simple. Unfortunately, they had forgotten that in Arashigakure, when your superiors make things appear simple, they usually aren't. Guren realized this when he had to leap to the side to avoid being impaled by a sword. A person in front of him was wearing a mask and a bandana that completely obscured their identity. This is the final battle, the person said, try not to die. Kimiko, on the other hand, was in a similar situation in her own section of the test. Instead of dodging her opponent, she blocked her opponent with her windmill shuriken and then spun it, causing her opponent to jump back to avoid the saw-like action. This is your final test, real combat, the individual stated. To say Guren and Kimiko gave them a run for their money would be an understatement. They were utterly defeated. Well, Kimiko was, though she did put on a rather impressive performance. Her use of ninja wire in combination with her windmill shuriken was brilliant, causing the examiner to back away from the whirling metal of death to seek cover. It was almost a moot point because she curved the windmill shuriken around the barrier her opponent was hiding behind. Unfortunately for her, the weapon became lodged within the surface of the barrier, forcing her to abandon it and be defeated after a brief exchange with her defending herself with a wakizashi. It was a lot closer with Guren than the Chunin would have liked to admit. Guren began by throwing weapons at his opponent, but after seeing that all of his weapons were either dodged or deflected, and having to dodge a few of his own, the Chunin decided to bring things closer. But that could have been a mistake, because as soon as he got within sword range, he was greeted with the sound of his clothes being cut as Guren drew his ninjutsu in a lightning-fast motion. The Chunin was unfazed, viewing it as a lucky hit brought on by quick reaction. Unfortunately for him, he had to admit later that the boy was indeed gifted. He had Guren in a deadlock with their blades, but Guren simply dropped the sword, throwing the Chunin off balance, and Guren removed his naginata in one swift movement. He attempted to get behind his adversary, which ultimately led to Guren's demise. Because of his impatience, he became predictable and was eventually defeated. The Chunin, on the other hand, made a special mention of the boy's prowess. It appeared that Arashi's future was secure. The following day, 3. The wet grass beneath the anxious student's feet was trampled as the morning sun rose steadily above the eastern horizon. The air was crisp with morning dew, but it felt heavy to them, like an invisible all-encompassing pressure filling the air and making it difficult to breathe while also warming the cool morning air. "Good morning, students, no, examinees," Hyam said flatly. "Today is the second part of your examination." Although this was already known, it added to the tension. "Today you will be tested on your ninjutsu, genjutsu, and stealth and cunning." He paused for a moment, making sure he had everyone's full attention for what he had to say next. "Let me remind you, you need to pass 4 out of these 6 exams, and stealth and cunning are required. In other words, if you fail stealth and cunning, you will fail, and as a result, that exam will be the last and will be presided over by Kanshisha-sama himself." There was a collective gasp. They were all familiar with Kanshisha, and the thrashing he had given them a few months before had been a watershed moment in many of their lives. The words he said to them lingered in their minds. One would expect the tension to rise, but it instead transformed into something else, a fierce determination. Naruto and Jugo sat facing each other in lotus position. Their breathing was slow and shallow, and sweat poured down Naruto's body. After a few minutes, Jugo opened his eyes and sighed. "You're doing great, Jugo," Naruto said, "and it looks like you're almost there." "Yes, to face it," Jugo said quietly. "Was that you, Jugo?" Naruto inquired. "Oh, nothing," he explained. "I was just wondering." "Naruto?" While Jugo was speaking, Naruto developed a distant look in his eyes. "Sorry, Jugo, it appears that this will be all for the day," Naruto said as he stood up, "but feel free to enjoy the day." "Do you mean no one will look over my shoulder?" "Well, I don't see any reason for it." "You've made a lot of progress," Naruto smiled, "so, later." A group of 7 people walked quietly through the woods. 3 are ahead of the other 4. According to the way her hips swayed with each step, the first 3 were a man, a child, and a woman. As they were led through the forest, the 4 behind walked with an obedient gait. "We'll be through soon," the man in front said as they continued their walk, "but don't lose sight of me unless you want to spend the entire day wandering this forest." There was something poetic about the blind leading the sighted, and the woman would have commented on it if they had been in less hostile company. In this case, they were the 4 people who tagged along behind them. They were the only ones they could get from Orochimaru's north base, where he conducted his most heinous human experiments. It was unfortunate, however, that these 4 were the only ones who kept their sanity and did not go insane like the rest. The remainder were all killed, and the base was looted for any valuable information, of which there was none, before being burned to the ground. The atrocities committed on that island were far from forgiven, so a merciful death was the least that could be done. They soon came to a gate guarded by 2 ninja and proceeded into the village after presenting their proof of identity. However, as they approached, the 2 adults in charge of the group froze. "Master, what is it?" inquired the group's youngest member. He turned away from the boy and faced the 4 people behind him. "I'm sorry, gentlemen, but it appears that this is as far as I am going to carry you," he said, raising a hand to stop any questions, "but my apprentice here will continue where I left off." Mira, the group's woman, simply gave Renmara a wink, making him blush, before leaving ahead of the blind swordsman. Renmara tried to ignore it as his master gave him instructions before leaving, but as he was about to leave, he paused, thinking that one more piece of advice for the people that he, his apprentice, and Mira had gotten from Orochimaru's base would be prudent. "Before I go, let me welcome you to Arashigakure, and please don't cause any trouble, because you never know who lurks in the shadows of this village." He then left in a shunshin. The rain fell heavily from the heavens, attempting in vain to wash away the blood that had long since stained Aim's lands, but it was futile. The blood and tears had already stained the ground, and no one knew that except the three who stood at the village's entrance. They were all cloaked from head to toe to keep the rain from soaking them, but one appeared to be much shorter than the other two as he sat in a wheelchair with a person behind him holding an umbrella to keep the rain off. The rain had no effect on any of the three, but the cloaks were more for the two facing each other than anything else. "I was quite surprised that Naruto-kun would send you," the one in the wheelchair said. "The whole world thinks you're dead. And now you are the servant of a boy your younger brother's age." Most men would have taken offense, but the man standing between the two was no ordinary man, and it showed in everything he did. The man only chuckled, which was unusual given who he is. "I wished for death," he said, "but Naruto is quite the character, especially for someone like me to be saved by him, don't you think, Pain?" "You are correct. He's a fascinating individual." "No, Pain did die that day. I am only Nagato," the wheelchair-bound man said. "Even after everything I did, he did not kill me but ended my cycle of hatred before my very eyes." "Very well, Nagato-san, I'll be sure to," the tall man said as he froze. Nagato regarded the man with interest before turning to face the woman behind him, a radiantly beautiful woman with blue hair. "What's the matter, Itachi-san?" Nagato inquired. "Yes," Itachi replied quickly, but he didn't appear to be speaking to them, "as you command." He then shifted his gaze to the pair in front of him. "I'm afraid I must cut our conversation short," Itachi explained, "because my business has been completed and I have been summoned. Kanshisha-sama sends his best wishes." He vanished in a puff of smoke with that. For a brief moment, the two locked gazes on the location. "Conan," the man in a wheelchair said. "Yes," Conan replied. "Wouldn't it have been cool if I summoned the Akatsuki members when I wanted to call a meeting? Naruto-kun is trying to appear cool in front of me?" Conan's sweat dropped, but smiled despite the failed joke attempt. The old Nagato appeared to be returning. She then grabbed the wheelchair's handles. "Quite a person," she said quietly as she walked back to their tower, while Nagato nodded silently in agreement. Itachi appeared in the form of a puff of smoke. He looked around and noticed that it was the same location where they had all received their seals. In fact, the last time he was here was to be sworn in as a member of the Jiryu no Arashi. The memory would have been nostalgic for him, but the expressions on everyone's faces, including the normally upbeat and talkative Shagar who was sitting quietly with a tense expression on her face, caused him to stray from memory lane. He quickly took his place and waited for Naruto to begin. "I hope your mission went well, Itachi?" Naruto inquired. "It was simple, Kanshisha-sama. Your name has a lot of clout with the leader of AIM," Itachi said, and then, as if by coincidence, he sends his regards. "I see," Naruto said before continuing, "the last time we gathered here was after a crisis that we decisively averted. Despite this, one of you was seriously injured. That will not occur again." He looked at Shagar, allowing his words to sink in. Some might have thought it amusing that a 16-year-old was reprimanding people who were all older than him. But these 10 people knew better. They probably all knew what he was capable of, with the exception of Itachi, because he made it a point to train them in the harshest way he knew how, the way he was trained. So when he said that his chosen 10 would be the most unstoppable force on the continent, he meant it. However, something has happened, something that I can no longer ignore. His words were as calm and clear as the night air, but like the night air, they were cold, and biting. This could only mean one thing: heads would be rolling. According to the Intelligence Division, Akatsuki members Hidan and Kakuzu attacked and kidnapped the Hachibi's killer bee, the Jinchuriki. When they heard the news, their eyes widened. The Akatsuki are becoming increasingly bold, attacking not one, but two of the major hidden villages, Riku added. Kisame even attacks here, Kanta pointed out. However, according to reports, Akatsuki did not sanction that attack. Mira responded. Considering who carried out the attack on Kumo, it's no surprise they're so bold. Kakuzu and Hidan are true immortals. Jin proposed. That hardly makes them invincible, Itachi pointed out, because it is so difficult to stop them that they have lost all sense of fear and danger and believe they are untouchable. Then let us show them how far they've gone. There are far worse fates than death, Naruto said, quieting the crowd. Most wonderful Kanshisha, are you saying we're going to murder them? That is exactly what I mean, he said before scanning the room and coming to a halt on two faces. Mataza, your ability with your Kinzokuten should be of great use, so I am assigning Hidan to you. If you are unable to kill him, bring him back to me. Tanoko, Kakazu is your responsibility. I believe you are best suited for him because of your ability to fight multiple targets as well as your mastery of elemental ninjutsu. If you can't kill him, incapacitate him and bring him to me as well. However, if you require it, I am ordering the rest of the Jiryu to remain in the village in case you require assistance. As you command, Kanshisha-sama, they both agreed. Now that that's out of the way, let us move on to other matters, Naruto said, instantly brightening the mood. How have you all been doing with your last assignment? Very well, Kanshisha-sama, Danjo began. They don't seem to trust anyone around them, especially Guren, but I think you'll like them, especially Guren. Mira laughed. You keep mentioning this Guren woman, Danjo-san. Is she of particular interest to you? She inquired, raising an eyebrow and smirking. Danjo simply huffed and ignored her, causing Mira to scowl in frustration. Well then, tomorrow should be interesting, Naruto said, when I see exactly what they have to offer. Along with Tsubaki, I want those of you who are not assigned to a mission to accompany me as well, because the other department heads will be there as well. Oh, Naruto-sama, what about the Genin exams? Shagar exclaimed. They're having their final exams later this afternoon, he explained, and I'm going to judge that one personally. After all, who is sneakier than me? A hooded male with pale scaly skin and glasses sneezed while performing hand seals in a dark cave in an unknown location. He pondered before returning to his work. This is your final exam, Hayam said as he stood in front of the group of examinees. This is the one that will make or break you and select those who are truly to be called Arashigakure ninja. This could be the most difficult challenge any of you will ever face. You make it sound as if there is no hope of passing when you say it like that. The voice appeared out of nowhere, and after scanning the area for the voice, a small twister of wind appeared and dispersed, revealing Naruto dressed in his office clothes, with Tsubaki standing silently at his back. Welcome to the start of the rest of your life, everyone. The wide fox-like grin on his face elicited several gulps of fear. The final exam, on stealth and cunning, was about to start, and it was being proctored by the most unpredictable ninja. Just a little longer, the individual thought to himself as he ran non-stop. Hokage message Samas must be delivered to Arashigakure at all costs. What exactly is a ninja? Before the arrival of the Rakudo Sennin, there would have been no definitive answer to that question, because as a ninja, even if everyone knew your kind existed, proving it would be nothing more than a witch hunt. The silent hands that troubled wary minds, causing demonic images to take on the life of the nameless and faceless ninja, were the source of a ninja's power. Naruto was taught to be silent, deadly, feared, and most importantly, to contradict all thoughts that others may have of him, and it was his duty as the newest head of the ancient shinobi way to ensure that the way did not die out and was passed down to the next generation. So, while they didn't realize it, this was the reason he made it mandatory in Arashigakure no Sato that no ninja ever take on the symbol of the village unless they could become like their ancient ancestors, or a close resemblance. He devised the test himself for this purpose, a simple game in which the student would have to steal a specific item guarded by a team of chunin in the woods near the academy and return it to the starting point. Of course, this test, like everything else, had a hidden agenda that would forcefully teach a valuable lesson to all aspiring graduates, whether they knew it or not. These were humility, the importance of knowledge, and teamwork, all of which were taught in the most basic of ways by the test. It was impossible to get through. Unless a student was one of those prodigies who appeared once in every generation, there was no way the student could steal the item and return within the limits of the test. They would be shown a picture of the item, then sent in individually without being told exactly where in the woods the item was guarded, just a general direction, and steal it without being caught or detected. They were hoping to go undetected. The student would then have to return the item to its original location undetected or without being caught. Everything was permitted for this exam, including ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu, as long as the task was completed. Every bit of cunning and stealth would be required. The students prepared until they were called, having understood what was expected of them as explained by Naruto. Before I forget, Naruto joked, the chunins guarding the item are all members of the assassination unit and have been given instructions to treat this as if it is a real mission. Hearing that, the examinees' eyes all widened, and some even began to shake slightly. We're all going to die, one examinee speculated. However, while you have permission to use lethal force, they are not allowed to kill you, Naruto said, relieving some of the tension, but don't think for a second that this makes it any less dangerous, because that doesn't mean something worse can't happen. What could be worse than death? A random examinee raised his hand to ask. However, he quickly regretted it when Naruto looked at him and his expression changed. Let us hope you don't learn the hard way, he said before quickly returning to his more boisterous self. Anyway, let's see, Soda Takame, you were up first. Hello, he said as he ran up to the woods. However, not long after entering, there was an explosion, and Takame flew out of the woods, landing right in front of his fellow examinees. Don't worry, he's just unconscious, Naruto said as he let one of the medics take him away and examine him. What the hell was that? Exclaimed Jubei, you mean there are traps in there as well? Naruto simply turned his head to the boy and responded with all the wisdom bestowed upon him by Master Jinta Kyoshi. What's the harm? The exam was over, and each of the examinees lay broken and defeated on the ground. Why were they this way? None of them were successful in obtaining the item and returning with it. They never got close no matter what they did, no matter how quiet, clever, or sneaky they were. Only the special advanced students Jubei, Kimiko, and Guren were able to get within striking distance of the item, but when they arrived, there was either an ambush or a trap that appeared to have been freshly engineered specifically for the person it sneered at. All of the students were currently seated in a classroom. It was unusually quiet, with a sense of foreboding in the air. Some of the students even had streams of tears running down their cheeks. It doesn't make sense, Kimiko thought to herself. What doesn't work? Jubei inquired, knowing exactly what the girl was on about. We all failed, that's all there was to it. It's just not fair, she lamented, because no matter what I did, they always knew where I hid, if I used Bunshin, and even where and when I moved. The door to the room swung open, and in walked Naruto, Hayame, Tsubaki, Hinata, and a red-haired girl who looked annoyed to be there or with the Kanshisha because she kept shooting annoyed glances at him. Naruto didn't seem to notice or care about what the redhead was doing. That didn't stop Tsubaki from giving the teen a warning look. Naruto walked to the front of the class, followed by his entourage. Hinata approached him, placed a box on the table, and smiled at the class. It was odd because she didn't appear disappointed at all. In fact, she appeared pleased. Sadistic bitch, the entire class agreed. Hello everyone, it's time to share the results. Well, not the results, Naruto said, crossing his arms and trying to find the right words. I'm going to call out the ones who passed. The students all groaned as the Kanshisha revealed what they already knew. They had been defeated. What? This seemed to perk up the students, though they were still perplexed. Let me explain, Naruto said. The purpose of the exam was to test your stealth and cunning. I assigned you an impossible task to see how good you are at it. Before continuing, Naruto had a sly grin on his face. Let me introduce you to Karen, Naruto said, putting the redhead on the spot. She is probably the best censor in Arashigakure, if not the entire shinobi world. After revealing this, the gloomy mood that had previously pervaded the room seemed to vanish, to be replaced by something more sinister. To be more specific, all of the students began staring at Naruto, and Guren was not immune to these feelings of resentment. Hee, it appears to be a little hot in here, Naruto joked before revealing a list of names, so, let's get started. Students and teams who are passing are: the following day, 4. Level 0 holding, where those who were not obviously enemies but could not be openly trusted were kept. This included everything from foreign ninja to foreign dignitaries. To call it a holding may be a bit misleading because it appeared to be more of a luxury resort with all the amenities, including a maid service to tend to the needs of the guests. That was only on the surface, as any true ninja capable of seeing beneath the surface could attest. This is why the current residents, the former Auto Ninja, have always been wary. They were well aware that, despite the luxury and helpful service, they were still essentially prisoners. No one was allowed to go outside at night, and the gate in the wall surrounding the building was always locked. Even the servants who served them were suspicious because they did not appear to be ordinary maids and butlers. A square sunken field, a fighting pit, about the same size as the field in Konoha's stadium, was located in the center of Level 0 holding. It was exposed to the elements. Obviously, it was intended for residents to use to train, but none used it, either for fear of being spied on or simply to enjoy as much of the service as possible while it lasted. Today, however, was different. One of the people who brought them here arrived early that morning and directed them all to the sunken field. What's the big deal? Inquired a man. Since you're all here, Kanshisha-sama has seen fit to view your skills today, the man explained as they approached the field. Sit here until they arrive, but when the Kanshisha arrives, he'll be announced and you'll all be required to stand and bow. Fine, whatever, another person said, but what will happen? That's simple, you'll have one duel to impress Kanshisha-sama. You can fight whoever you want, whether it's each other or even me, one of the Jiryu no Arashi. It's okay, said the Jiryu member. Anyway, my name is Danjo, it was a pleasure, and it looks like the others are arriving. People began to trickle in one by one as he said this. A young man in shabby clothing at the back of the group of former Auto Ninja kept looking to his side at a blue-haired woman in green robes with Camilla printed on it. His glances were not unnoticed, however, as the woman cast a scornful glance his way. What do you want? She inquired flatly. I'm sorry, but are you Guren-sama? He inquired. Do you have a problem if I am? She inquired, clearly not in the mood. No problem at all, he said, waving his hands frantically until Guren turned her fierce gaze away from him and sighed in relief before continuing. It's just that you were one of Orochimaru Elite's Samas and I'm not all that confident in my skills, so. Spit it out already, she snarled, I don't have time for this, and if you think I'm going to pick you just to make you look better, forget it and stop bothering me. There's nothing like that, Guren-sama. And then what? You are so powerful that there is no way they won't want you to join them as one of their elites. Of course, Guren said, enjoying the man's compliments. So what, do you want me to put in a good word? You are too kind, Guren-sama, the man said, but Guren laughed before he could finish. I suppose I could do that, but what can you offer me in exchange? Information, the man said, on the top members of this village who appear to be making an appearance today. Oh, Guren replied, a predatory smile on her red-painted lips. So, let us hear what you have to say, and if it proves useful, I will consider it. The man cursed mentally after realizing he had given away his only bargaining chip. Unfortunately, he saw no better alternatives, and worse, he now had something that one of Orochimaru's elites desired, and everyone knew that those people always got what they wanted. One way or another. So, knowing that there was no guarantee that his life would improve as a result, he gave in. Alright, he sighed, that first guy who came in, the one with the black hair and black eyes. He's Kuga Kai. He is the head of the Hunter Nin department. He was a former S-class missing nin who was pursued by all the villages, but it appears that the Kanshisha persuaded him to join. That's interesting. I recognize him, and that name sounds vaguely familiar, Guren commented. It should. Orochimaru annihilated the rest of the Kuga clan in order to obtain their Hijutsu. Guren's eyes narrowed, especially when Kai took a seat on the raised deck opposite the Auto Ninja and glared at them. Oh, that woman there with the purple eyes and long purple hair who walked in. I don't know what her exact position is, but word is, she is pretty important, maybe even on the same level as Kai since she is here too, the man said, but the best part is, I heard she is someone quite special to the Kanshisha. You say it's special? Guren gave an interested smile, that might come in handy. She appears to be young, however. That other woman who just stepped in as the medic's head, I believe her name was Mika. Yes, that's it, Mika. HMPH, doesn't seem like much, Guren said as the next person entered. She seems a little more interesting, though, rather young too, Guren added. Guren, on the other hand, nearly gasped when she saw the girl's eyes. Does she have? That is Hyuga Hinata. She may appear young, but I hear she is one of the most powerful ninja in this place. I'll believe it when I see it, Guren remarked smugly, that child is still wet behind the ear. I know what you mean. I couldn't believe it myself, especially since she looks more like a doll than a ninja, but she obviously has an equal rank to Kai and the purple chick, and the best part is, she single-handedly killed Hoshigaki Kisame about a week ago. I'm sure you've heard of Aotenpai and Tsukihana. Guren gave a nod. Her name is Tsukihana. That is certainly unexpected. I wonder if we will also see the infamous Itenpai? Danjo began to speak before the ninja could finish. Uzumaki Naruto-sama, show your respect for the Shodai Kanshisha. All of the Auto Ninja stood up and followed Danjo as he bowed on one knee with his head to the ground. Guren, on the other hand, was intrigued by who could command the respect of these people and whether he was truly worth her time. So she peered, and what she saw disappointed her. A brat? She wondered, I'm not swearing loyalty to some wet behind-the-ears airpunk. I'd be surprised if he can even throw a shuriken straight. Naruto wore a simple yukata with his haori over it. Hagen Riku stood in front of him, flanked by Hinata and Tsubaki, and followed by the counselors and the rest of the Jiryu, with the exception of Mataza and Tanoko, who were tasked with tracking down Kakuzu and Hidan. Naruto and Hinata sat first, opposite the Auto Ninja, on a raised floor specially prepared for him. The others sat down beside him. Arise, he said formally. There was no time for jokes or acting unprofessionally in this situation. They all stood up from their kneeling position. You are all here because I extended my hands to you, and you accepted it of your own free will, Naruto began, but that does not mean you will be given a rank at random. You will all earn your ranks and a name for yourself today. Following that, if you demonstrate your loyalty, the doors to true strength will be opened to you. As the Auto Ninja mumbled amongst themselves, Naruto paused for a moment to allow his words to sink in. Now, if you haven't already been told, these are the rules. You can choose anyone here to duel against to show off your skill. Everyone quieted down to hear him speak. Following that, your rank will be determined. You must fight until either one of us is defeated or I am satisfied. All of the ninja appeared to be satisfied with the terms, and Naruto nodded to Danjo to proceed. You will be given everything you need to fight with, including poison if you prefer, Danjo said as he walked to a covered table and unveiled it, and when your name is called, enter the arena. They were chosen at random, and the chosen person chose who they would fight. Unfortunately, they all learned a very valuable lesson after the first fight, which, in retrospect, they should have learned from Orochimaru a long time ago. Appearances can be misleading. I choose her, the first randomly selected ninja exclaimed, pointing to Shagar, who was preoccupied with playing with Coco. Shagar was startled out of her reverie when she realized everyone was staring at her. Wha, me? She exclaimed, pointing at herself in confusion. Are you certain you want to pick her? You could even pick among the others, even the elders sitting in the back, Danjo inquired. You said anyone, so I chose here, he said, losing patience. Danjo exhaled a sigh. Alright, Shagar, you're up. I didn't want to fight today, Shagar grumbled before setting Coco down and skipping into the arena. I'm so lucky that I get to choose first. This girl is so weak that I'm going to look really good defeating her, the man reasoned, and if she's here, she's even a high-ranking ninja. Stupid logic, but logic nonetheless. The sight of some of the Arashi ninja face-palming and looking on with sympathy fueled his desire for an easy win. This was not true. They were looking at him with sympathetic eyes because, of all the Jiryu no Arashi members, he had chosen the one who was most likely to kill him by accident. Hikari Shagar, while childish and appearing to be the picture of childlike innocence, was a member of the Jiryu for a reason, and her Kekkei Genkai was not the only reason. The fight began with the ninja throwing 2 kunai in quick succession at the girly girl, and while he didn't think much of her, he did survive in auto, so he assumed she could dodge or deflect the thrown weapons. As a result, he dashed towards her in the wake of the thrown kunai, holding another one poised to end the fight quickly and impress his judges. Shagar saw the 2 weapons approaching and deftly avoided them. However, she rolled backwards when the man appeared in front of her, putting an end to the fight quickly. She jumped backwards to avoid him, but he didn't give up and continued to pursue her. He became irritated by her antics and her constant retreat, so he decided to taunt her. Stop running, you coward, and come face to face with me. What's the matter, is that all you can do? Shagar came to a halt, a cute pout on her face. Suddenly, wires appeared from the ground and wrapped themselves around her. You're mean, Shagar said, not even flinching against the wire. The man smirked as he realized he had won his fight in record time. I can't believe you were taken in by such a simple. His words were cut short when pink chakra feathers appeared from the area of her tailbone and easily burst the wires. Kujaku mai. Many. Now it was his turn to run, but just as he thought he was out of her range, he heard her speak again while holding the bird seal. Kujaku mai. Kimono. The chakra, which was previously in the shape of a whip, shortened and then transformed into 2 grotesque-looking quadrupeds. The chase resumed, and he soon realized he was trapped in a pit with a monster. It didn't last long because she then removed her sword, and a pink chakra blade extended from the tip of the sword faster than he could blink. Enough, Danjo said as the chakra blade was only centimeters away from his brow. Alright, Shagar said cheerfully, canceling her techniques, thanks for playing with me. She skipped back to where she had been before. After witnessing what happened to the first Auto Ninja, the rest of the former Auto Ninja were hesitant to see what the other, more dangerous-looking ninja was capable of. So they voted among themselves. Things were going well until the final ninja arrived. It was no surprise that no one wanted to pick her. She was Guren, one of Orochimaru's elites, and like all his elites, she had no qualms about killing those she perceived to be weaker than her. And they were well aware that they were weaker than she was. Guren didn't mind one bit. She didn't want to be mixed in with the rest of them because she didn't think much of them. So, who are you going to fight? Guren smiled at the question as she locked her gaze on the one person she wanted to avoid. Him, she said, motioning across the room to the blonde Jinchuriki. I want to put that brat in his place for wasting my time like this. That insult ruffled a few feathers, but Guren didn't seem to mind as she continued to stare down Naruto with authority. This should be interesting, Naruto said, standing up and walking down to the arena after removing his haori and handing it to Hinata. Guren simply took her time walking down to meet him, infuriating some of the others even more. You don't seem to know much about respect, Naruto remarked casually, as if discussing the weather. You must be Guren. Guren laughed arrogantly. You sure know a lot for someone whose subordinates don't even respect him, little boy. Naruto simply laughed at the remark. He understood what she was saying. She had insulted him numerous times, but only a few people had bothered to express their displeasure. The thing was, they were all angry because of her words, but they also knew that she had chosen the one person who would defeat her in more ways than they could count, and not just the physical kind. I think I like you already, Naruto said, his voice slightly more solemn, and as a bonus, I would even let you attack me from behind. As Naruto said this, he turned around and faced Guren. Guren was taken aback by his proposal at first, but that quickly turned to anger. She clenched her teeth. You'll be sorry, she said sarcastically. Nobody disrespects Guren like that and gets away with it. Especially not this upstart brat. A group of ninja surrounds a man who is lying on the ground in the forest that surrounds Arashi, within the genjutsu barrier that keeps it safe. His breathing was heavy, and it was obvious that he had nearly run himself into the ground. A foolish thing to do. Those in charge of the barrier and all those who pass through it would not allow a person or group moving at that speed to pass easily or unhindered. The poor fool ran all night and into the next day until the team within the barrier had to physically stop him. Fortunately for him, he was already exhausted, so the fight was short and he went down alive. Your mask reminds me of Konoha Anbu, one of the Arashi ninja said, his voice deadly serious, a strange contrast to the smiling faces behind the masks. Yes. I am. A Konoha Anbu, he said, barely able to speak due to exhaustion as he gasped for air. What exactly is this message? He inquired. Must deliver. Direct, he exclaimed as his breath returned. That's out of the question, he said, but since I'm the captain of the barrier team, you can leave the message with me. It'll be safe. This message is of the utmost importance. It will affect the entire shinobi world, he explained, and I must ensure that it is delivered by my own tongue in order to fulfill Hokage orders. Sama's. Then we have a problem because I cannot just let an elite such as yourself within striking distance of our Kanshisha, said the ninja, turning to his team and whispering something before disappearing in a shunshin, but if what you say is true, then I cannot obstruct your mission. So, for the time being, you will have to wait. What? You do not underestimate, the Anbu was knocked unconscious from behind before he could finish his statement. It appears that something is on the horizon, the ninja said. Yes, this is too obvious to be an attack, and it is too soon since Hitaki and his team's departure to be considered a follow-up, said the woman teammate who knocked the Konoha Anbu unconscious. I just hope it's nothing too serious. Naruto stood patiently, his back to a snarling Guren and his arms open wide. It was a stupid thing to do. In a fight, one should never turn their back on an opponent, especially a ninja. To make matters worse, she was a member of Orochimaru's elite with extensive experience. Whatever you want to say about Orochimaru, he had an eye for talent and knew how to cultivate it, even if it was for his own selfish purposes. So, while Naruto might have expected a rushed attack, a thrown weapon, or even a genjutsu or ninjutsu, he did not expect his feet to suddenly become heavy and encased in crystal that climbed slowly up his body. What the hell is this? He asked, turning his head to look at Guren. Guren accommodated his plight by walking around so he could look at her face, or rather, so she could see the boy's last look of desperation before she completely ensnared him. She made sure it moved quickly enough to cover his hands and prevent him from trying something fancier, worse, clever and escaping. If he did manage to flee, she could have more fun by slowly picking the brat apart for his insults. How pathetic, she exclaimed, her beautiful face twisted into righteous rage and smugness flashing in her eyes. Is this really the best you have? Is he really the man in charge here? She continued because she received no response. Well, isn't that sad, she said, caressing Naruto's crystal statue, but it's no surprise a pathetic leader would have pathetic followers. As she said this, she noticed the Hunter Division's dark-haired leader clenching his hands. This made her smile. Her smile widened even more when he took a step forward but was stopped by Hinata's hand on his shoulder. What's this? I thought you had some courage, but I was wrong. She turned her gaze to Hinata, who looked at her without emotion, to be controlled so easily by children. From now on, I will rule over this village. If any of you think you can take on my challenge, come now or I'll put you down like your pathetic leader. No one came forward, and the only thing that happened was Hinata began to laugh. It wasn't the phony laugh used by people in stressful situations to mask their true feelings, but an actual sound of mirth. This did not sit well with Guren in the least, but she managed to master it. Do you honestly believe you can laugh in this situation? Shton. Suished. Crystals appeared from her right forearm in the shape of a tonfa as she raised it to smash Naruto's crystal structure. He may still be alive inside there, but if I smash him now, he will be dead. So, do I now have your attention? Hinata's smile, on the other hand, did not fade. Quite, but you had my attention the entire time, she meekly replied, but you shouldn't take your attention away from your battle. Guren laughed. That was fine with her if the stupid little girl was that dense. She'd simply take them by force. After all, even doing something as stupid as turning his back on her was enough to defeat their leader. So, with a triumphant grin, she smashed the captured Naruto. However, as she smashed it, she noticed something peculiar. It gave her a friendly smile. She wasn't sure, but she realized something was wrong. Something was horribly wrong. The man who was about to take the stage was far too composed. In fact, everyone was far too relaxed. She had just destroyed their village's ruler and insulted them all, yet they were all calm. They weren't just calm. They seemed. Sigh. Guren heard something from her side. Her pupils dilated. Shame, the voice said, I thought I looked good in jade. Guren jumped away from the voice as quickly as she could and returned to her previous location. He was standing exactly as he had when the fight began, with not a single scratch or ruffled piece of clothing. Guren's eyes narrowed as he gazed at the pile of crystal that was once his prison, then he panned his head towards her. How? I know I caught him, she thought before looking at the pile and noticing that it contained only her crystals, no broken pieces of crystallized flesh. Must have been a Kawarimi, but I didn't notice him. You're pretty arrogant, you know, Naruto remarked. All that time and all you could have done was catch a clone. Then you brag about it. That could not have been more amusing if I had planned it. Naruto began to laugh heartily at her at this point. To make matters worse, everyone watching the fight, including the former Auto Ninja, began to laugh. Guren was seeing red at this point. She could have simply left him half dead and gone about her business at first, but now only his blood on her hands could satisfy her rage. You brat, she screamed as another blade protruded from her other forearm. I'm going to kill you for this, and I'm going to do it slowly and painfully. Naruto paused his laughter and turned to face her. He began to approach her. He moved slowly and precisely, like a predator, but with a playful expression on his face. As he approached, sweat began to form on Guren's brow. She took an unconscious step away from him when he was within meters of her. What is this sensation? Guren questioned herself. Really, can you truly kill me while retreating like that? He asked. The taunt was straightforward and direct, but Guren responded nonetheless. She clenched her teeth and lunged at Naruto, her blades poised to end his life. This could mean that he didn't use weapons because of his fighting style, or that he was trying to have a fair fight. In either case, a frontal assault with her weapons was the most effective opening attack. He had already proven to be evasive. She would not let him slip through her fingers again. Guren landed a roundhouse kick, forcing Naruto to lean back to avoid the added threat of her jade crystal blade. She then launched another roundhouse attack, this time at his stomach, intending to disembowel him, but he avoided the attack by quickly pulling his gut in and curving his body. Guren didn't stop there. When Guren realized his position, she pulled back her extended arms to cut into Naruto's face, but he ducked under it. Guren anticipated this by raising her knee and kneeing Naruto's nose, causing him to stumble back a little. Guren took advantage of the situation quickly and flashed through a series of seals. Suishimori. Shton. Crystal formed around her arms, transforming into a rod that then extended into a lance, impaling Naruto before he could take his bearings. So she reasoned. Naruto burst into a puff of smoke as the lance pierced his stomach. Are they solid clones? Guren realized this as she searched the field for her opponent, only to find him crouched at her feet, smiling that predatory smile, and free of any wounds from the previous round. My turn, Naruto said as Guren leapt away from him, her crystal lance dropped. No matter how far she retreated, he seemed to get closer and closer to her, and each time she lost sight of him before he reappeared. He's not moving that fast, and I can keep up with him, Guren reasoned, but how am I losing sight of him like this? The human eyes and mind were deceptive in that way. As she retreated again, she noticed that he was getting closer and closer, until he seemed to appear right in front of her. Guren was too stunned to react, and as a result, she paid the price with a hard punch to the solar plexus. Guren retreated once more, but as she ran, Naruto appeared at her side with terrifying speed, delivering a roundhouse kick to the same area, doubling her over his shin. She collapsed to the ground, enraged and clutching her stomach. Get up, Naruto said matter-of-factly, is this how you're going to kill me? Naruto was forced to retreat when he was suddenly bombarded by a swarm of what appeared to be crystal shuriken. Shuriken Ranbu, Shton. Guren realized something after the two attacks, something that infuriated her. The brat was teasing her. She would show him that she was not to be trifled with. As he watched Guren go through another set of seals, Naruto danced and weaved nimbly through the barrage of crystal shuriken. Psych Kesho Toge, Shton. The shuriken barrage ended, But Naruto couldn't relax because he had to move constantly to avoid being pierced by the growing branches of the growing crystal structure. It always followed him no matter where he went. It appears she sees me as a threat, Naruto reasoned. I guess that means it's time then. Take foolish risks and act like a fool. Make your opponent believe they have the upper hand and are only fighting to survive. Then, begin to build momentum so that they see you as a genuine threat, and when they do, they will be in a hole that you will bury them in with fear. It was getting close. Is this the end? Is this how you're going to kill me? Said Naruto as he dodged the crystals. Naruto formed some hand seals as he continued to dodge. Hageshi K's Bakuhatsu Futon. Many tiny vacuum spheres emerged from Naruto's mouth. The spheres encircled him, and whenever the crystal approached Naruto, they would implode and destroy it. Meanwhile, Guren didn't respond, and she didn't bite, or so she thought. She created yet another set of seals. Shton. Suisho Tugoku Nami, she said, this is over. As she said this, the growing crystal that was attempting to skewer Naruto came to a halt. However, tiny crystals began to form from the air itself. I figured you could crystallize objects as well, Naruto said as the crystals fell like snow and crystallized him as they touched him. Well done Guren, you have passed the first of my 3 tests. He said it with a smile, despite the fact that his body was quickly encased in the crystal. Guren didn't have to be concerned about him escaping through Kawarimi. He would still be in danger if he did. Because there was no cover in the arena, he was always in danger. You fool, you failed mine, Guren yelled as she dashed to shatter the crystal and finish him. It wasn't meant to be. A hand burst out of the structure just as she was about to smash it into a million pieces. Guren was stunned and unable to respond. She soon regained her bearings and decided to fight back and flee, but his grip was stronger than steel. Her terror increased as the crystal began to fall off. Her heart beat a little faster with each piece that hit the ground. She tried to flee as more of his body was revealed, and when he was completely free, she tried some one-handed hand seals, but Naruto snapped her wrist in a quick and fluid motion before tossing her away from him. The smile on Naruto's face had faded, and Guren realized something she had already known, but this time in a different light. He was playing with her, not toying with her, just to see where she stood, but playtime was over for her because he had his results. This terrified her because he'd already demonstrated that she couldn't hit him with taijutsu. She had considered ninjutsu, but one of her wrists had been broken, so ninjutsu was out of the question. She still had options, but none of them seemed appropriate. Run, hide, accept defeat and yield, or fight on and hope to come out on top. None seemed promising. How did you escape? She asked, her only option stalling. No one could escape that technique. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu is quite a useful technique, you know, he said solemnly this time. Let me ask you something. How many? What? Guren inquired, perplexed. I started this fight intending only to test you so I didn't do any serious damage, Naruto explained as he approached her, but now I realize you are quite the powerful adversary who has no problem putting others in danger to achieve your goal. So tell me, how many pieces of you should I carve? Guren was frantic as she picked up a discarded kunai with her good hand, trying to think of any way to defeat this man. Naruto, on the other hand, did that disappearing act again. However, she was prepared and had predicted where he would appear, so she plunged the kunai where she expected him to appear. The trick was simple, but it was also a forgotten skill taught to Naruto, Hinata, and Akira by Master Kyoshi. Despite having a wide range of vision, human eyes do not see everything in their field of vision. Instead, they try to focus on what is most important. Naruto, Hinata, and Akira learned to expand their range as well as read others' ranges in order to slip through the cracks in their vision, giving the impression of teleportation or disappearance. It was more difficult to do this to a ninja, but not impossible, unless the ninja possessed a Sharingan, Byakugan, or could sense the opponent. Guren slashed with her kunai, but it got caught and broke her other wrist. Unfortunately, that plan was also shattered when she felt a sharp pain in her back. Her legs seized and she collapsed to her knees. Guren strained her neck to assess the situation, only to discover senbon at the base of her spine. She couldn't pull them out because her wrists were broken. However, that was the least of her concerns as a shadow fell on her. She looked up and saw something that made her feel like she hadn't felt in a long time. Naruto took a kunai from his yukata and slowly blew on it, causing the wind to extend the short weapon's reach. It was artistically beautiful in Guren's opinion. It reminded her of the day Orochimaru destroyed her village, and something stirred within her for the first time in a long time. She felt fear, enough to cause a tear to fall down her cheek as she saw her death approaching. To be beaten and broken so easily and decisively. "You have lost," Naruto said, his weapon poised for a strike, "but why have you lost? Is it true that I am stronger than you? Are you that much weaker than I?" "Why yes," Guren said, her eyes welling up with tears, "you are stronger than me. Then finish it." Even in defeat, she was proud, and she had gained some respect. "I like that you're proud," Naruto said as he released the wind from his kunai. What Naruto did next would haunt her and send chills up her spine for the rest of her life. "Be my proud ninja," he said, wiping her tears away and moving in closer. "Will you be a proud ninja with a proud home and serve me in this village?" Guren had no idea what had happened to her, but her face began to heat up and her heart began to race. "So, will you become a proud kunoichi of Arashigakure?" he asked quietly in her ear. "Why yes," she said, leaning into him as if giving up all of her rage. "Are you willing to yield?" Naruto inquired. "Yes, I yield," she said as the senbon was lifted from her back, "and I will become your kunoichi." "Sleep now, Guren of Oto," Naruto said softly as he cast a genjutsu on her, "and when you awaken, you will be Guren the proud crystal of the storm. She fell into the genjutsu-induced sleep, a tear rolling down her cheek. "Are you okay, Uzumaki-sama?" "You were caught in this kunoichi's technique," Tsubaki inquired as she appeared by his side. "I'm fine, Tsubaki," Naruto said as he placed Guren in the hands of the medics. "She is strong and her jutsu is powerful, but it has a weakness, or rather a couple of weaknesses." When Naruto's Kage Bunshin was captured for the first time, he used the opportunity to try to understand her crystal element, and when it was dispelled, he realized something. She could crystallize air and anything she touched, but she couldn't crystallize energy. She can't crystallize energy like chakra, and Naruto chakra Kun's is very powerful, Hinata said as she examined Naruto for injuries when he returned, but you could have found a better way to let her know she stood no chance. "True," Naruto said, nervously scratching the back of his head under Hinata's gaze, "but she's stubborn, and just beating her wasn't enough. I needed to break her." So he began with her jutsu, something she obviously took pride in. Hinata understood. After all, she could have done the same thing. Naruto, the department heads, and the elders deliberated after the exams. Unfortunately, things did not appear to be going well. The majority of them were fodder, nothing more than genin by storm standards. But it wasn't all bad. The ones at Chunin level showed great promise. Perhaps with some remedial training, they could make Junin. Whatever you want to say about Orochimaru, the Snake Man knew how to find talent. Guren, on the other hand, was the best part. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that she was Junin, and she deserved it. She could even advance to the rank of Special Junin. However, Before any of the former Auto ninjas could become an official ninja of Arashi, there was a final test. Unfortunately, the examiner found this test as difficult as the examinee did. It was a test of devotion. The solution was to give each of the former Auto ninja a seal. It was a kill seal that could only be activated remotely by a few people. Of course, they were unaware of this. After all, in order to truly test a person's loyalty, they must be unaware that they are being tested. They were told they were on probation for 3 months, but they were actually on probation for 6 months. During this time, they would have free access to all areas except the most sensitive. To test loyalty, trust had to be given. That was one way of earning it. The true evaluation would begin 3 months later, when they were unaware they were being tested. Only the most loyal or paranoid people would survive. So, after the deliberation, Naruto rose from his seat. He made his way down to the arena's center, where the former Auto Shinobi were. They all bowed, with some more eager than others. "Stand," Naruto said, taking on the role of stern and strict ninja master. "We have deliberated and we have decided." He paused for dramatic effect as well as to look at the ninjas in front of him. Naruto's sense of humor was one of those things that never died. "You shall all be selected and incorporated," he declared, prompting applause before Naruto raised a hand to calm the crowd. "In Arashigakure no Sado, we pride ourselves on 3 things: stealth and cunning, strength of will, and loyalty." They sat silently, giving Naruto their undivided attention. Even Guren, who grudgingly listened, gave him her undivided attention to his every word. Naruto correctly identified her as a strong and proud woman, and with that pride, he beat her at her best and brought her to her knees. She listened to his speech about how to learn stealth and cunning, about how to strengthen the will, but she was caught off guard by loyalty, about how it is not something that is given cheaply or easily. Guren had never been loyal to anyone, including Orochimaru. She was envious of his power and devoted to it. She would never betray him, but she never truly respected or trusted Orochimaru. Only a fool would do so, and Guren was no fool. That's quite a contradiction considering she would have given her life for him at the drop of a hat and even willingly offered her body to him. One way or the other. Yes, she was a strong, proud woman, both in the way she looks at herself and in her outlook on life. She was not easily swayed, and her loyalty was not easily given, but when it was given quickly and without hesitation, whether to the person or to something the person possessed. They were each given a mark for their new Hitai Ite. They would wear them for the duration of their 3-month probation period. Guren had already made up her mind, so this was a moot point. Naruto had already shown her a portion of his power, causing her to cry. She was now his, and she knew it because she had said it. Flashback. "Be my proud ninja," he said, wiping her tears away and moving in closer. "Will you be a proud ninja with a proud home and serve me in this village?" Guren had no idea what had happened to her, but her face began to heat up and her heart began to race. "Well, will you become a proud kunoichi of Arashigakure?" he asked quietly in her ear. "Why yes," she said, leaning into him as if giving up all of her rage. "Are you willing to yield?" Naruto inquired. "Yes, I yield," she said as the senbon was lifted from her back, "and I will become your kunoichi." End of flashback. She was now his proud kunoichi, and she would go to any length to keep it that way. Anything. Why am I feeling this way for him? Guren wondered. He's just a brat. "You are now a shinobi of the storm, and I am your kanshisha," Naruto said as he looked out over the ninja assembled before him. "Naruto, we have a problem," Hinata said quietly in his ear. Her tone of voice indicated that she was very serious. "What exactly is it, Hinata-chan?" He returned the whisper as the ninja dispersed as they became free members of the storm. The barrier team has intercepted a Konoha Anbu, she said, and then continued, my subordinate informs me that the ninja claims to be carrying a message directly from the Hokage to you. That's interesting, Naruto said. There's no way Kakashi and the others would make it back in time for Tsunade to respond. So, what are your plans? He could actually be one of Danzo's route attempting to gather intelligence or attempt an assassination, she speculated. Or he could be lying, Naruto countered, in which case, let's go see what this Anbu wants. A few moments later, Naruto approached a cell and peered into its dimly lit depths. A man of average height and build was inside. He was chained standing up, his arms spread wide and his hands fitted in stone gloves to prevent the formation of seals, and an inscribed pair of matching seals used to suppress chakra were left bare on his stomach and back. They were quite effective. Naruto had created them as a means of suppressing powerful chakras. Unfortunately, nothing short of a Jinchuriki's seal could fully suppress a Bijuu's chakra. Akira, on the other hand, decided they would still be useful. The man looked up when he saw Naruto, but he was flanked by 3 women: Tsubaki, Akira, because the prison was under her jurisdiction, and Hinata. You are Uzumaki Naruto, Kanshisha of Arashigakure no Sato, the ninja asked, and Naruto nodded, though it was more of a statement. I am, Naruto admitted, but you already knew that. I apologize for the treatment. Precautions. That is unimportant, Kanshisha-sama, he said, I have been charged by my Hokage with delivering a message to you and no one else. And what exactly is that message? Naruto inquired. Please come closer, this information is extremely sensitive. Naruto thought about it for a moment before agreeing and walking straight into the man with the 3 women at his back. Is this close enough? He inquired, almost daring the masked man to attempt something. Naruto was surprised that the ninja did nothing. It would have been interesting to see what he would have tried. Godem Hokage-sama wishes to inform you that the Raikage has requested a meeting of the 5 Kages. What?
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.